My name is Hammond. I'm a documentary photographer. I work mostly on human rights and development issues in developing countries. Over the last 3 years, I've been working on a project on mental health in African countries in or coming out of crisis. That project's taken me to 9 different sub-Saharan African countries, from South Sudan to Somalia to Congo to Uganda to the refugee camps in Kenya to Sierra Leone, and most recently to with the help of the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting, to Liberia. There I went to investigate the mental health impacts of conflict on former child soldiers. 250,000 people died in the wars in Liberia, and 15,000 children were forced to fight. Many of those children now have grown to young men and women and are struggling to cope with the trauma that they faced in those wars. You know, we talk a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder amongst troops coming home, troops from Britain and the US. But for children who don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with the trauma, the effects of PTSD can be particularly devastating. They suffer a variety of symptoms. Often it's flashbacks of the traumatic events, or sleeplessness, aggression and depression. And meeting the former child soldiers in their communities, the depression and the aggression in particular were evident. A lot of those children were forced to take drugs during the war in order to give them the courage to go and commit horrendous atrocities. And a lot of those children ended up being addicted to drugs. So now that they've grown up, a lot of them are still drug addicts, and drugs have become a very big part of their lives. Some of them, without the support of mental health professionals, they also use drugs to self-medicate, and sometimes it's just to numb the pain of the trauma they're feeling, to blur the visions of the people that they kill or torture, that keep revisiting them. And sometimes it's just to be able to sleep without the nightmares that they have waking them. After the war, they formed their own communities, and they did this because they were shunned by the population around them. And within those communities, they still use often their war names, and they respect the ranks in a war that everyone else is trying to forget. With my work, I wanted to capture the daily life, how these former child soldiers, how do they live today. But also, part of the series was to do some portraits of these former child soldiers, and I thought this was a way that they could give their own voice to the topic. When I was doing my reportage pictures, trying to capture daily life, they would offer pose, and every time they did that, I would stop taking pictures, and they soon learned that I wasn't there for that kind of photography. But when it came to the portraits, I said, look, if you want to pose, you do what you want. This is your picture. And one of them picked up a piece of wood and held it like a gun. And then when he did that, all the others copied him too. So I ended up with a series of portraits of these children, these former child soldiers, which were, I thought, deeply ironic. These were adults playing with toy guns when, as children, they were forced to fight with real guns in a war that was anything but a game. Now these former child soldiers feel like they have been victims of this war, and they feel abandoned by the world and by the community around them. So I hope that in some way the work that I did was able to give them, in some small way, just their own voice. And that's the point of the work I'm doing about mental health in African countries that are in or coming out of crisis, is to give a voice to people who've been severely neglected and often abused.